Good evening and welcome to Thursday night's Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. My name is Daniel Caw. I am joined as ever by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith.
And look who else is here, Daniel.
We've got a resident ref back, Des Roache. Des, how's it going?
It's actually, you've got my stand-in brother that's here tonight who plays hockey. So he knows nothing about it.
Les Roache.
We'll get Les Roache.
Aye.
See, to be honest, I don't know why I've got you on, Des. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I don't think there's much to discuss.
I tell you, I've had the easiest day in work for a long time. It's been brilliant. Didn't even hear from you until, I don't know, about 3 minutes ago.
Well, obviously, I'm being facetious. It's been a mental 24 hours since the end of that game last night. I don't know where to start, Keith. I don't know where to start.
Let's start with Des. Des, we're going to hear from Derek McInnes in a minute, right? Because obviously this thing's gone off like a nuclear explosion over the since last night. Everybody's having their say on it. It's got attention all over the UK, down south in particular. Gary Lineker's had his say. Jeff Stelling's had his say. I think I've seen referees and Champions League referees in Denmark having their say. It's gone crazy. So, in terms and scales of 1 to 10 of big moments for officials, potentially mistakes or controversies that we've experienced in Scottish football, where does this one rank for you, Des?
From my time involved in Scottish football, I would say this probably ranks about 12. I think this has just caused absolute bedlam all around the country. I'm sure you, like me, everybody is wanting an opinion. Everybody's asking a question. And see, if it hasn't been for this topsy-turvy season, this incredible season that we've seen, and I'm talking for players on the field and match officials on and off the field, you could actually probably phone up a Hollywood scriptwriter, and this is what they're giving you.
Yeah. So when you say 12, what do you mean by 12?
It's beyond what I've ever experienced.
Right, so 10 being the maximum.
10 being the all right, okay, I'm a PE teacher, okay? I count beanbag. No, of course, this is 10 out of 10. This is probably as big as I've ever seen.
I mean, we've come through some things. Dougie springs to mind, for example, and incidents like that. But these were moments in seasons earlier in the season. I don't think there's been, and we talked about this, didn't we, some weeks ago? We hope that when it gets down into the kind of final nitty-gritty moments of this campaign, that it's not a decision that we're left talking about. And by God, we couldn't have a bigger one. What was it, 8 minutes, 7 minutes into injury time, Celtic 2, or Motherwell 2, Celtic 2, and this decision which potentially changes the whole landscape of the big final day shootout. Certainly does from a Hearts perspective. Just see, before we go and hear what Derek McInnes had to say about it, give us your initial kind of assessment of what went on, right, wrong, decision, the process. Just talk us through it from your perspective.
Well, I'm not comfortable with the whole process, start to finish, if I'm perfectly honest. I think that when you see the incident, first of all, easy answer, no. In my opinion, it's not a penalty kick. Okay? The reason being, and the most clear and obvious reason for that is it is not a clear and obvious error. And that is why VAR is there. VAR can
is that still the rule?
Yes.
Because I don't know if that's still the rule anymore.
Well, unless it's changed in the last 24 hours. Or only the Scottish FA are adopting their own rules. No, VAR is there to enact when there is a clear and obvious error. The fact that we are talking about it 24 hours later, we'll get to the other bits here. There was nothing there. The referee gave an on-field decision that you should support because that is what he's seen it there. We've got laws and we've got guidance, and what we're there is at that moment in time, the hand at the face isn't in an unnatural position. It's not. He's jumping. He's not making his body larger. He's not making his silhouette larger. Now, I know we're looking at the screen there, but if he had his arms out to the side, if he had his arms up at the top and it struck him, yes, then that is him creating a larger image of himself. So no, the ball's there to protect his face. If the ball, I also watched the show last night, if the ball hits the player there, the natural reaction is the player's going to bring his hands to his chest, which is making his body smaller. If it hits him there, we've been told that's not a penalty kick. That doesn't count. So what's the difference between there and 8 inches higher to protect his face, which is a natural position? Now, he's got to jump, which everybody's entitled to do. You've got to get leverage. But again, he's jumping, his hands here at his face. And you can also say that Trusty's right shoulder is making contact with the Motherwell player.
And pushing his arm up.
Raises his arm again. But it doesn't raise his arm here. It raises his arm more, covering his face. So, no, for me, it's not out the body. It's not deliberate. And the impact is partially created because of Trusty's impact. VAR should not get involved in that. That's not what VAR's there for. And the on-field decision of the referee should be supported.
Well, Keith, you mentioned Derek McInnes. We've got tons of comments coming in. He is the subject of a lot of them. Let's have a listen to what the Hearts manager made of it all last night.
Have you seen the Celtic penalty?
Yeah,
have you, in terms of the frustration of the last?
Yeah, so I don't want to. It's no me. Shouldn't be commenting another game. But I knew I was going to get asked the question, and having seen it, it feels like us against every. It's when you see the two that we didn't get at the weekend, and then you see that, how they can arrive at that situation. I mean, listen, Celtic have, I'm sure, more than a touch of fortune of getting that penalty. But I'm getting more and more dismayed at some of the decisions that our referees are coming up with. It's such a bad decision. Motherwell must feel totally aggrieved with it. I don't see. I had to keep looking at it. I thought I was missing something when I was watching it. I had to ask, what am I looking for here? It's actually quite disgusting, to be honest.
When you're talking about it feels like us against everybody. Can you use that in your favour going into the final game?
Yeah.
You've got to go to Glasgow.
Yeah, of course, it will be like that. You're getting into 60,000, the place will be rocking, and we'll look forward to it once it comes along. And I think for us, that type of game, that type of stage, we're deserving of that, and we'll look forward to it. We're not going to shy away from it. We've got a good record against Celtic. Like I say, it's Martin's done a brilliant job in getting Celtic where they are, and I think it's, as I say, it's obviously it's no winner take all because we can get a point, but it's difficult for us to go into any game. Players are tuned to win, managers are tuned to win, so you don't go for 90 odd minutes and just play for a draw. The only thing I can think about is when you go away for home in Europe sometimes and you make sure you're nice and solid and you don't need to go and win a game early on, but you can be nice and compact. But some of the things you normally say when you go to Celtic Park anyway as a manager, and it will be some of the similar traits, try and make sure we get a strong start in the game. But we know a point we'll do is, and I think at some point in the game, whether if that is the case with 10-15 minutes to go, then that might play a part, but certainly not for the start.
See, before we come back to the actual penalty, guys, Peter in the comments says McInnes should have the book thrown at him, whether it's right or not. He's simply out of order to use the language, and it's not deserving of a title-winning manager. And Sean echoes that, saying after it settles down, what kind of punishment should they all be looking at? Do you think he could be in trouble for the language he's used?
I think he left it just about vague enough. Disgusting is a really strong word, right? Yeah. But he's not pointing any fingers towards a conspiracy of any sort or incompetency. It is a strong word. I don't know what the deal is with the current SFA compliance officer, because this would fall onto his desk if it is something that they want to take further. They want to process. Certainly, the way this works, it can't be fast tracked. So there's no danger that Derek McInnes is going to be sitting next to Rod Stewart on Saturday. But it might be something that they take a look at. I don't know, but I think he's probably been smart enough to leave himself a bit of wriggle room, although the word disgusting is a strong word. Now, that's one thing. The next thing is, do I have complete and utter sympathy with him? Yes, I do. Because he's been battling all season to try and make history. Hearts, at one point last night, had one hand on the trophy. So I think you've got to factor in he's going to be disappointed. He's going to be emotional. And I think he's every right to be upset by that decision. Because I don't care how many times I look at it now. I think it's just absurd. This is where people are going to they'll have their points. They won't budge from it. Celtic fans will look at it and say, it's a handball in the penalty box. It's a stonewall penalty kick. And I have some sympathy with that because them's the rules, or a version of. You're going to have Hearts fans looking at it saying, and we've seen this already, everybody was right, there's West Coast bias, referees always look to do favours for the Old Firm. And then you're going to have Rangers fans adopting a different view, which is, no, Hearts are just finding out now what we've been telling you all for 10 years. This game's bent and it's all in Celtic's favour. And do you know something? It doesn't really matter what Des says, what I say. It'll not shift any of those people from their perceived points. It won't change. So we're kind of talking about nothing here because everybody, according to the colour of the scarf, will have a set position on this by now. I just find it astonishing. And do you know the other thing? See, if you think back over the course of the season, we've probably seen worse decisions than this. And people are saying it's the worst VAR ever. I'm not sure it is. I can think of, I don't know, probably 10 that might rival it over the course of this season. The thing that makes this different is that the context that it arrived in, the minute that it arrived in, and so late in injury time in a match which Celtic were desperate to win because we're just about for it all roll over at Celtic Park and an end of season shootout. That's what makes this different. I think we've probably seen decisions that are equally as difficult to understand all throughout the course of this season.
Keith, just 2 weeks ago, I would say that we said it was inexplicable. The Joe Newell goal against Celtic. I mean, we can all see he handballed it.
And that was, yeah. So there's plenty of examples. I just think there's so much on this, and because anxiety levels are going through the roof here, and because there's so much on it, that we might be guilty of overstating the scale of the actual mistake. For me, it's a mistake. It's not a penalty kick. Should never be a penalty kick. And I can't understand it. And actually, go further than that, Des kind of mentioned that. VAR, Andrew Dallas, who is our specialist VAR expert, has absolutely thrown his mate under a bus, a double-decker of a bus, by getting him over at the screen. And let's have a bit of context to this as well. This is John Beaton. John Beaton has been sort of derided as a bogeyman character with the Celtic support. And this stretches way back to Brendan Rodgers' first time in charge at Celtic. And the brother Beaton patter and all this stuff. And we know what that means. Let's remove the elephant from the room. The accusation is that he's some guy with a dodgy handshake that's a big Rangers fan and is desperate to make decisions which are to the detriment of Celtic. That's the context here. Now, remembering that, and if you're Andrew Dallas, you call him over to that screen for that decision last night that nobody else has seen, nobody else is appealing for, just Andrew Dallas. You pull him over to that screen. John Beaton, I don't think there's any place for him to go other than point a spot. Only took him 20 seconds. We're all still debating it and having arguments about it and looking from all different angles. It took him 20 seconds. And I'm pretty sure that he had probably had it in his own mind. Well, I've been boxed in here. There's nothing else. What is the reaction if John Beaton, given the bogeyman status that he's got, comes off for that screen and says, nah, I'm happy, I'm sticking with my decision, no penalty kick?
One thing I was...
And Des, for me, he's a human being. that those potential consequences have to be flashing through his head when Andrew Dallas pulls him over that screen.
I was just going to say as well on that, I don't know what you think, but I was really surprised at how quickly he made the decision. 17 seconds he looked at it and seemed to be certain.
Yeah.
Penalty.
So there's a couple of things here to discuss. So if we go to the first one, the last one that Daniel said, did we not have a VAR review a couple of weeks ago? I think it was Kevin Clancy with Dundee United that took about 7 minutes, or was it Kilmarnock Dundee? Took about 7 minutes to decide if there was a push in the back.
Right, yeah, it was.
Yeah. And this can be done inside 20 seconds. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen the way I was watching it in my television, I didn't really see the VAR screen move terribly much. And how many angles are you going to get to see in 20 seconds? So if I was getting called across to say, I think you might want to look at this, knowing the magnitude of this decision and knowing the magnitude of the game, and take away that, wanting to get the right decision in the first and foremost, you have to look at all the angles available to you. And you have to look at the frames slowed down to ensure that you're going. So there again shows VAR light, because we don't have all the cameras that can show us the angles that are going to require us to make that proper decision. We didn't see an angle from behind the goals. We didn't see an angle from down towards the corner of the pitch. We just seen one angle. And as soon as John went across, I had the feeling in my pit of my stomach, he's going to overturn that. He's going to go with this. But for it to last 20 seconds, and as soon as he turned, you're thinking, yeah, penalty kick, which I was really surprised at. To go to Keith's argument in taking the human element in of it, I can understand that to an extent. However, what I don't accept is the professionalism that you've got to have in that position. And you're being paid to do a job. You're being paid to, you're lauded as one of our best referees. And one of our best referees, if he's up to date with the laws of the game, which he is, he should be strong enough character to turn around and say, no, thank you, I'm happy with my own decision. But, and I'll go on with it, but unfortunately, we do know what the repercussions could have been on the back of that. And it's not nice to say that those kind of sentiments would maybe fly around in the west of Scotland. But I would like to have thought that John Beaton would be professional enough to have the courage of his own convictions to say, yes, I disagree with you, Andrew, I'm taking it. The Keith said he's been flung under a double-decker bus. I'd say he's been just flung in front of the Eurotunnel train going at 150 mile an hour. There's potentially no coming back from this.
See, the thing is, what do you mean by that? No coming back, Des? Do you think?
I think his credibility could be shot from this.
Do you think that the SFA will hold him to account on it? Do you think that Willie Collum will drag him over the coals? Do you think there'll be a demotion? Do you think, or do you just mean in general his reputation among football supporters, managers, players is done?
I think among the football fraternity, his reputation has taken a massive sledgehammer to it there. Regarding the SFA, I hold them accountable. Now, I know people say we think that we've got a vendetta or something against Willie Collum. No, we don't. Willie Collum, the reason we make opinion is because he's making public opinions and we either happen to agree with him or don't agree with him. Okay, it's nothing personal. But we've seen Willie Collum explain decisions and the SFA explain decisions very similar for handball incidents that are not punishable by penalty kicks, and that's the edict that's been sent down in the training. I've said all along, refereeing is about the education and training that you're given, and the same people keep getting the same games, who keep making the same mistakes, keep appearing again and again. And handball rules go from A to B to C to D every single week. There is no consistency. It's horrible. Now, if it was me, Scottish football and refereeing just now is a laughing stock. That game last night is a laughing stock. And as you quite rightly said, it's not just a laughing stock in the west of Scotland. It's all over Scotland, it's all over the UK, and it's all over Europe now. If that's the level that we're working to, I wouldn't be surprised if everybody would be saying, well, we can't trust it.
That's pretty strong. There's one other thing that I need to get your take on. There's so many comments coming in about this and questions. Strange Code says, what about Dyson getting absolutely cleaned out by the keeper before half-time? It was a red card and a pen, no one talking about it. The late penalty was justice, and believe me, he's one of maybe a dozen people that have written in saying the same thing.
Well, I did see it latterly because, as I've said to you, I never seen the first half fully, but I've seen the incidents that counted. I'm not overly concerned about that because Maeda was backing in. Maeda was making a back for the Motherwell goalkeeper, and the Motherwell goalkeeper was hell bent in going and taking the ball. And as we've discussed as well, Engels is expecting the free kick against the goalkeeper because Engels has almost just chucked it and just slapped the ball away. So that was the feeling you got from the players on the pitch. But regarding being justice, and again, like you, I've had people saying to me, "Oh, that's him making it up." I certainly hope it's him not making it up, because why is making 2 errors better than making 1 error? Yeah. If you make a decision and you get it wrong, the most important decision is the next one you make. And as soon as that decision's gone, it should be crushed up, put in the bin, and you go to the next one.
I know, Keith, you didn't think it was a penalty on Maeda. I would just, playing devil's advocate, if a centre-half challenged Maeda like that, you would give a foul.
My view at the time was I thought it was they was going to award a free kick to the goalkeeper, because the goalkeepers, as we all know, are an overprotected species. I did think that Maeda was backing in, and if the keeper wants to come and get the ball, what's he meant to do? Is he meant to run around him? Maeda's backing into his territory. He has to come out as a good goalkeeper should do. He has to come out, whether it's ball, man, the lot. He has to, as long as he can get to the ball, and he got to the ball. Maeda was obstructing him from coming out to get there. Whether he was doing it knowingly or not, I'm not sure. It didn't pass any test for me for being a penalty kick. And as I said last night, I think the fact that the ball then drops down to Engels and he just sort of has a wee flick at it. He thinks he doesn't realise play is live at that point. I think he's just, which is silly of him, because if he plays to the whistle, oh, by the way, all he needs to do is take a touch to the side, fire it into an empty net, and it's a goal. But it was a freaky set of circumstances. But I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that should have been a penalty kick for Celtic. The goalkeeper's just coming to claim it. I'm glad, actually, in a way, that it wasn't given as a free kick, because, as I said last night, I think they are. You know, I don't like the amount of protection that keepers get, and in that instance, he's had to come out. He's had to come through bodies. He's got to the ball. I get the point. I get the argument. People will say, well, if that's a centre half, but it's not a centre half, because he's there to clear the ball with his hands, and the ball's up there. So if the ball's up there and a centre half comes through the back of Maeda, because how's he going to get to the ball with his feet?
Entirely correct.
A goalkeeper's going for it with his hands, and sometimes you need to come through a bit of traffic. I just think that was good goalkeeping.
Yeah, he's the only person on the field of play who can legitimately make that tackle, because he's reaching for the ball with his arms. Correct.
Thank you, Des.
Before we let you go, Des, our trusty producer Henrik, he's actually found what I think is a conclusive angle. We can put all this to bed of last night's handball. I think this speaks for itself, really.
Stonewaller.
Aye, look, that's...
That was a January transfer signing, and Shrek made his debut for Motherwell last night.
And he was outstanding as well.
Apparently.
Kenny Everett.
Des, as ever, it's been brilliant having you on the hotline. Fantastic as always. Saturday, I dare say we'll bring...
Oh my God.
Hold on a minute.
Saturday.
Hold on a minute. Darren, book that holiday.
Just put it this way, Des, you're going nowhere on Saturday. It's not safe for you to leave the house. We'll catch you on Saturday night. I'm damn sure we'll have discussions.
Until then, though, Des, thank you so much for joining us on Hotline Live as ever.
No bother, guys. Speak to you soon. Hopefully not.
You know it, Des.
The one and only Des Roache, our resident referee, Keith. Now, we're going to talk, obviously, about other stuff, Rangers as well. But we've got some breaking news on the Hotline Live tonight.
All right.
James Tavernier has issued a statement
Knew that was coming. I
As
thought it was going to be tomorrow.
he's issued it on his Instagram. I'm just trying to find it. Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, please.
Dear fellow Rangers fans, Rangers will be in my heart for the rest of my life. I want every support to know how much this club means to me. It's important to me that Rangers fans know throughout my career I've given everything for our beloved club. Last 24 hours have been the most difficult and emotional of my career, both for myself and my family. I'm sure you will understand that I cannot allow any confusion around my departure or the events surrounding last night's game. I picked up a knock in my ankle after the Hearts game. Following discussions with the medical staff, we agreed that an injection was the only option, which was initially scheduled for Thursday. After Sunday's games and with the emotion running high, I made the decision to bring the injection forward to Tuesday. That decision would have ruled me out both Wednesday and Saturday matches. After speaking throughout Monday with my family in the medical department, I came to the decision to delay the injection until Thursday so I could play one final game at Ibrox on Wednesday night. I personally informed the manager of this decision and explained how important it was to me and my family that I had the opportunity to say goodbye properly to the Ibrox faithful. I said I wanted to lead the lads out of Ibrox one last time and have my children walk out with me as mascots. I was told this was the right decision and that I deserved a proper send-off. The manager agreed and he said he wanted me to have a great send-off. He knew exactly how important this moment was to me and my family. Tuesday then went ahead as normal. Training day, nothing was said. I arrived home, tell my son how excited he was. He was going out at Ibrox with his dad one last time and be a ball boy for the game. What hurts deeply as a father is that my son has also sacrificed going away with the Rangers Academy to his first overseas tournament in Holland because being at Ibrox, my final home game, meant that much to him. Even though my wife and I encouraged him to go and enjoy the experience with his teammates, all he wanted was to be beside his dad for one last walk out at Ibrox. After messaging the manager on Tuesday to ask whether I would be starting the game and explaining my children were asking if they would be walking out as mascots, I was then informed I would be starting the match as a sub. In that moment, my emotions understandably took over.
When was that, Dan? Sorry, read that back a little bit. What stage in the proceedings?
After messaging the manager on Tuesday. To ask whether I'd be starting, he told me I'd be a sub. My emotions took over. Many people feel I could have handled the situation better. I accept that. But after dedicating over a decade of my life to the club, with my family beside me throughout it all, I felt deeply hurt and let down. What disappointed me... Sorry, this is really long. I didn't know it was going to be this long, but there's a lot in it.
No, it's important. Go.
He says, what disappointed me most was the version of events that was later presented publicly, as it did not reflect the conversations that had taken place privately beforehand. I firmly believe the situation could and should have been handled much better from all sides. A lack of communication allowed matters to escalate unnecessarily in the build-up to such an emotional occasion for myself and my family. Anyone who saw my reaction in the pitch last night will understand how emotional I was feeling, not only about leaving Rangers, but about everything that happened in the lead up to the game. Lastly, I want to make it clear no individual is bigger than this great football club. Rangers must always come first. I hope the fans continue to stand united behind the team and the club moving forward. Thank you for everything. So that come up, and our producer Henrik very kindly pointed it out to me there. Just as we've been on here.
Henrik.
Pretty strong comments, Keith.
Yeah, and it kind of what have I been saying for a wee while, Dan? About I've just had this feeling that things aren't right behind the scenes there, and that's James Tavernier basically calling out his manager, saying he's not telling the truth. And I don't know if it can get much worse than that. I also have, look, two sides to this coin. One, if I was Danny Roll and I looked at Tavernier's performances in the kind of last couple of games against Hearts and Celtic, and I was going into another big game that really mattered, and I had to win it, I would have be given serious thoughts to resting James Tavernier. The fact that I wouldn't even have to give that much serious thought to it, I would just do it. But that wasn't the context here. Context is this is James Tavernier after 11 years of service playing for the last time at Ibrox in a game that doesn't matter because it can't affect anything. Rangers are in third place. They're not going fourth and they're not going second. I just think it's a real bad lapse of judgment from a manager who's been prone to really bad lapses of judgment over the run-in to this campaign. I think it's inexperienced, and I think it's problematic, because I know how much respect James Tavernier has of his teammates inside that dressing room. And I think for them to see their captain being treated like that by the manager and shown such little respect, I think that will play really badly in terms of the sort of relationships and the mechanics inside that dressing room. I think he's caused himself a real problem. And for what? For what? To deny him his moment? I don't see the upside. I don't see what Danny Rowe was thinking. And it feeds into this sort of picture that I've been gently trying to paint about. I'm just not sure that the group of players that are in there are buying Danny Rowe. Now, a lot of people will say, well, good, they should just leave, and they've underachieved to such extent that, yeah, that's a good argument too. Maybe Danny Rowe's the right one here. But I still, whatever anybody thinks of James Tavernier, the service that he's given that club over more than a decade, always available, hardly ever injured, the goals, the numbers, everything. He's been the front man throughout some really difficult years for the football club, and some very, very ordinary, and that's been kind, Rangers teams. He's been the guy that's had to carry the can. I think he deserved, on any sort of human basis, he deserved that opportunity to walk out with his kid as a mascot for his last ever game as Rangers captain. And I think that's been handled quite horribly. And I think that behind the scenes at Rangers, shortly before kick-off last night, I think there was all sorts of chaos going on when people realised what was actually happening, and James Tavernier wasn't in the stadium, wasn't going to turn out for his presentation. And I think there was all sorts of stuff had to go on to try and dampen down a situation. Now, the reason that I say that is you're the manager, this is your dressing room, it's sacred, it's a sacred territory.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else should get involved, nobody else needs to know what's going on inside that dressing room. See, when something like that happens, because you're the manager and your inexperience has led to a situation which then leaks out and goes upstairs and everybody starts to learn about it. That, again, I'm sorry, points to a real lack of experience. It points to a young manager who's trying his best, but I think is just out his depth. And the worst part of it is, I could maybe understand it or excuse it if Danny Rowe was going into that Hibs game with knowing that there was something on it.
Aye.
There was nothing on it.
No.
The only thing that mattered about that game last night was that James Tavernier got the chance to say goodbye. Because everybody else, the whole world was watching what was going on at Fir Park and what was going on at Tynecastle. That was purely, the Hibs fans are there, obviously, that matters to them because they're chasing Europe, and the Rangers fans are there. But I think the Rangers fans that bother to turn up, most of them, as you saw there, they were turning up to say goodbye to a guy that given them 11 years.
Yep.
For Danny Rowe to take that away from him, I think it leaves serious question marks over his judgment.
For what it's worth, I completely agree with everything you've said. I caught up with Record Sports' Andy Newport, who was at the game last night. Obviously, I spoke to him earlier on, Keith, before Tavernier's statement, but I did catch up with him. And let's get his take on things. Let's see what he thought of last night's game.
Joined on Hotline Live now by one man who was at Ibrox last night. Andy, I need to start with James Tavernier. Well, I've thought about this a lot since last night, and I don't know your take. I've not asked you off air yet. I think it was really bad the way Tavernier was treated. I get that he maybe took the huff at not starting, but for a player like that to go out like that, it just seems so sad.
I can't comment it from the other direction. I think he'll come to really regret the way that this all panned out last night. This was a chance for him to sort of go out on his sword, if you want, to go out with his boots on. And, listen, he might not have been starting, but he certainly played last night. Danny Rowe was clear in that. Seemed to suggest that it was really an injury that had sort of meant that he couldn't play the full game. And listen, it was an important game for Danny Rowe as much as it was for James Tavernier. James Tavernier's it's effectively Rangers past. Danny Rowe still has a future at Ibrox, and he has to try and cement that any way he can. Obviously, the way the game panned out, 4 defeats in a row, the first Rangers manager ever to lose 4 in the bounce, I think. They did a five-game run of defeats back in about 1983, but I think that was split over a couple. I think Jock Wallace and I think there was a caretaker involved.
It was 2 managers.
Yeah, so listen, he had to pick a team that he felt was going to win the game. And for James Tavernier to throw a bit of a strop, really, throw his toys out the pram because he wasn't going to get a start. Listen, I get it was a big night for him. His kids, his family were there, his friends and family were there. He'd wanted to go out, go out in his own circumstances, as it were. But listen, as Rangers captain, as any captain of a football team, you've got to be a guy who puts club and squad first, not yourself. And I thought for him to sort of listen, there might be more to it. We can all go by what we've been told from Danny Rowe, from people at the club, from reports that we've seen elsewhere. But my understanding was that Danny Rowe had assured him he was going to play, but that wasn't good enough for him, and he's thrown a wobbly. The fact, I mean, again, we haven't had this verified yet, but I saw a picture floating about of him sort of standing there with that cake. I don't know if you call it a bowl or a platter or whatever it is that you get presented by John Gregg. It looked like he was outside the ground whilst the game was on, because there's a picture taken of him outside the ground holding that silver platter, and it's sunny outside now. Obviously, the game finished in darkness, so has he? There's a question there that needs to be answered. Has he left the ground while the game's going on? If that's the case, that's poor. That is really, really poor. For a Rangers captain to do that, I mean, I know he's heading out the door. I know, even in my match report last night, I discussed the fact that this is a guy who will divide opinion forevermore. Like, where does he really stand? Where does his Ibrox legacy sort of sit? Is he a legend? Is he not a legend? You look at, was it over 550 games, 144 goals, but 3 winners' medals. Does he deserve his place in the Hall of Fame? We've had that argument a million times before, but I just think for a guy, if you're the Rangers captain, you should be there with your teammates and you should support them. And it just kind of sums up what Rangers are right now, and that's a rudderless ship. Last night was just, again, poor, no tempo, no intensity. Standards have slipped so far, and listen, this is a team that have been pilloried for months this season at times. Last season, standards are a million miles away from where they should be at Ibrox, and Danny Rowe's talking about, that's what he needs to raise next season. Listen, he's got a lot of convincing to do. For me, I like him as a guy. I think he's a really nice person. He's very personable, really polite, just a nice, honest guy. But I think Rangers managers are judged in the big games, and so far he hasn't won enough of them. That's why he's under pressure. But if he's to get Rangers back to a position where they can win trophies, they need to raise standards. I think ladder upon ladder from where they are right now.
We've debated it a lot, Andy, in the last couple of weeks. Danny Rowe's status as Rangers manager. I know Keith has said that he doesn't think he's out the woods yet in terms of still being there next season. Do you have confidence that he will restore these standards?
Well, listen, I don't know. I mean, I think it's presumptuous to even try and talk like that, because we've been in this position so many times, looking at Rangers managers and the big promises that they make at the end of one season and then things sort of vanished the next season. Listen, for me, I think he'll be the Rangers manager at the start of next season. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think the board have come out with quite firm backing. I don't think Danny Rowe would have made the comments that he did at the pre-match press conference if he hadn't been assured he's going to get the summer. But I think the first few months of the season are going to be packed with peril for him. There's so many banana skins sort of littered all over that early schedule. When you're talking about, as things stand, obviously they've gone into Q3 of the Europa League, so you've got 4 games to negotiate to get into the group stage of the Europa League. No guarantee that they'll even be group stage football if they were to lose that game, that first qualifying round. You're then talking about the likelihood is they'll probably be away from home the first day of the season. they'll be away from home the first time they have to go, well, the first time they face Celtic, and they'll be away from home the first time they play Hearts. I think somebody said last night they'll probably also be due to go to Pittodrie away from home in the first round of fixtures. So there's 3 huge away days in the first sort of 2 or 3 months of the season. Some huge European games. If any of these sort of go wrong, it'll be under pressure right from the get-go next year. So this is why, and again, then you look at the work that needs to be done over the summer. I mean, well, World Cup summer, that recruitment transfers can sort of grind a halt a wee bit. Teams tend to wait until after tournaments out of the way before they do their business, sort of higher up the food chain, and that often has a sort of trickle-down effect on the teams beneath them. So, I was speaking to Scott McDermott this week. I mean, you're looking at 6 loanees that will all be due to return to their parent club. I don't expect to see any of them back, not even Mikey Moore. I think he'd be the only one that Rangers fans I think would be keen to see back, but I don't think there's much chance of that. You're looking at, obviously, James Tavernier will need replaced. Question marks over Nico Raskin. Question marks maybe over Manny Fernandez. I think there'll be question marks over Jack Butland, because I don't think he's been at the levels recently that he has been. And then you're looking at other guys, Nadim Barami, Bojan Majowski. I think even guys like Oliver Antman, who haven't really sort of clicked since they've come here. So, I mean, there's question marks all over the shop. I don't think MD can be certain of their future. I mean, even just I wrote a piece yesterday about Jose Cifuentes will be due back. I think as it stands, they've got 8 players out on loan. By my reckoning, you could probably have 5 or 6 of them coming back this summer.
No.
Or sort of within the next few months anyway. And, again, that's going to take up sort of mental bandwidth for the guys like Dan Purdy and Greta Steinstein in terms of getting them moved on. And it's going to take up just time that can be spent looking at new recruits. Just try to get them off the wage bill. So this is a huge summer. And again, I think that Andrew Cameron had hoped to move away from this kind of rebuild every summer, but I think this is another huge summer. I mean, might not get to the sort of 15, 16 players that we saw in and out last year, but I don't think it'll be far off it.
No, I agree, and I think a lot of it depends on the owners going again, for want of a better phrase. I mean, do you think they will? Maybe not to the same level, but I mean, who knows?
In terms of investment and finance? I think it's needed. I mean, if they're serious, I mean, you look at Celtic, will have a generational rebuild. I think it's the phrase that young Ryan McDonald used. They've got £70 million in the bank to help them get along with that. Plus, listen, they may very well have a good shot at Champions League football again next year, depending what happens on Saturday. So, they're going to have 15, 16 in, you would think, but they've got money to spend. Whether they spend it wisely, that's the perennial question with Celtic. Hearts obviously will, they've got some level of Champions League football. I would imagine they have some level of European football guaranteed. Group stage football, I should say, regardless of whether it's the Champions League or the Europa League. So that'll be investment they didn't have this year. So imagine they'll be looking to put more money in their squad, and with that Jamestown sort of now so that they've got, they'll be looking to go again. So Rangers really do. The days when you only had to sort of worry about Celtic has been the only other competing factor. They're over. So Rangers need to get themselves back into a state where they can compete. Otherwise, I think they gave the crowd at Ibrox last night is 50,000. I think it was well short of that. I think if they get off to a kind of start they had this season again next year, that I think you'll find people's enthusiasm for the whole thing just starting to wane. I think they're in that sort of perilous state because it's been, as I say, 12 years out of the last 15 that they failed to win a major trophy. You just wonder how much longer the punters' patience will last in that front.
And just before I let you go, Andy, I know we've talked about Rangers, but I'm asking everyone, what did you think of the penalty incident at Fir Park last night?
I just thought it was a horrible, horrible decision or position that John Beaton was placed in. I imagine his heart must have absolutely sank when he was told to go to the monitor, because open play. I've only, obviously I was at Ibrox last night, so I've only seen sort of snippets of the replays and things like that. But from my point of view, I don't think when the ball goes out of play off of Nicholson's head or hand or whatever it is, there was much of an appeal. You can tell me wrong.
No, there wasn't.
So I think at that point he's not thinking there's anything really going on. Then he gets called to the monitor, and it's such a hard one to decide. I think we get asked to do something online earlier on. As I said, again, it shows up the bargain basement VAR that we've got. Timu VAR, as Ryan Stevenson called it earlier on. I spoke to him earlier on. It's if you've not got all the camera angles, and I know today there's been some clearer stills, but John Beaton did not have those available to him last night. So listen, he's coming to a decision. I still don't. Listen, I think there's evidence now it's Sam Nicholson's hand, but does that necessarily mean it's a penalty? I think his arm's sort of nudged into place because he bounces off a trusty. If his arm's not there, the ball still hit him in the forehead. I think it's harsh. I think you can argue what you want about John Beaton, about VAR, about the processes or all the other controversies that we've had this season. I think it goes down to a larger question about handball as a mess. It's an absolute mess.
No.
It's because his hand gets nudged into place there. Does that mean that Hearts might potentially lose a title? Does it mean that Motherwell might miss out in fourth place? Is that really what it's coming down to? I mean, listen, we know football's a game of fine lines, but I think until the lawmakers can get themselves into a position where they can sort out handball, we're going to continually have these really harsh sort of decisions going against teams that are going to, prove costly. Hearts have waited 66 years for a title. If this is the thing that eventually sort of takes it away from them, no wonder they'll feel hard done by. It's just, again, I do feel for the referees because, like John Beaton, who would be a referee in this position? He must be waking up this morning just, want to throw his phone in a drawer and lock it away for a week because it'll be a nightmare for him. It really will.
Absolutely. No, Andy, it's always a pleasure having you in the Hotline Live. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll be annoying you again soon.
Cheers, Daniel.
Cheers, Andy.
Record Sports Andy Newport there, Keith. Before we wrap up, one more trip to the comments, if that's okay with you.
Yes, of course.
So many coming in. Rebel says Tav should be treated better than that. Sad. Really poor show from Roll. Bengal says I'm a Danny Rowe fan, but honestly, that was shocking treatment. Tav should have played. Although Strange Code says Tav throwing toys at the pram for nothing. Real embarrassing situation. He could have just came on for a wee clap from the 15,000 or so that was there. Matt says Roll will probably have a great career, but for his sake and the club's, it must be mutual parting. Club needs a serious figurehead. Get worse before it gets better, Keith said at the takeover. Dogs of War says Roll tried to assert his authority, came away looking weak. And Marzuno says maybe Tav can be a mascot for the last dead rubber. He's better than that, Marzuno. You're better than that, Marzuno. Come on. But what do you make of that, Keith? Not Marzuno's comments, the other ones.
Yeah, it's an unsavoury ending to another hugely disappointing season, and that's why James Tavernier carries the unfortunate nickname of Captain Disappointed. He leaves as disappointed as he's ever been at any point in quite a disappointing Rangers career. Not in terms of his own personal achievements, but certainly in terms of the club's failure to compete on a regular basis for silverware throughout that period.
Keith, do you think James Tavernier is or was a good enough player to have played in, say, Walter Smith's 9-0 team, or even his team that got to Manchester in 2008? Is he over that level, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, would he have got a game at right back in a Walter Smith side when Walter Smith, the basis for his sort of success was always a really strong defence and build it out from there? I don't know. Would he have played as a wing back? Would Walter have gone with three centre halves? Walter went with a lot of centre halves in various occasions. Some in full back positions, some in midfield positions, depending on what they were up against. He was the complete pragmatist in that regard. But I fail to see, when you look at Tavernier, when you look at I know they say the numbers, but the amount of goals and assists that he's contributed, hard task not to want to try and get him into that team or a variation of those teams. Bear in mind, there were various points when Walter didn't have, especially in his second term, he didn't have the most talented players. He had 1 or 2, 3 or 4 really good players, and then he was filling around the edges, just trying to cobble things together because of financial restrictions. Which, well, let's not open that door. But look, James Tavernier's been a brilliant servant for Rangers. He's just happened to have coincided with, a really barren spell for them in terms of winning titles and trophies.
The very last thing I was going to ask you, Keith, was predictions, but you said it last night. There's no predicting Saturday, is there?
There's not. But I can't jump horses. I keep on saying this. I've been with Hearts for months out. When it was still a 3-horse race, I was saying Hearts. They're still on top with 90 minutes to go. Personally, I think it's looking a little bit of a longer shot than I'd done previously, because I don't fancy anyone's chances of going to Celtic Park with this at stake, with the atmosphere the way it's going to be. It's going to feel like a Champions League night in there.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the game. I don't feel just as confident about Hearts' chances as maybe I previously did. But if, from a Hearts perspective, they're fueled, aren't they? I mean, they are fueled with what went on the other night. They have fought so hard to get themselves into this position and stay in this position. And they happen to have the comfort of knowing that at no point this season have Celtic actually managed to do what Celtic will have to do this weekend, which is beat them.
Yep.
And they've got a manager who will be drumming that message home between now and Saturday lunchtime.
Yep.
So, look, still going to go with Hearts because I can't not. I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them. But I'm just so excited about watching the game. I'm so excited about what madness that we don't know yet is about to drop into our lap from God knows where.
Well, look, whatever happens, we'll be there to pour over it all on Saturday. We don't normally have a show.
Saturday shows now. Jeez.
A Saturday show to mark the big occasion. We'll be on at 4:00 on Saturday, I believe, in the aftermath of, I guess, we'll know who the Premiership champions are, Keith. So we'll be back then. We hope that...
I don't know why we're bothering doing a show, Dan, because 50% of the normal audience is going to be partying someplace, isn't it?
It's a very good point, actually. It's a very good point. We'll do it anyway. We'll see how we get on.
Or just drowning their sorrows, one way or another. People might be otherwise engaged, but we'll be here, Dan.
We'll be here like we always are, giving our viewers and listeners the brilliant chat that they deserve, Keith. 4:00 on Saturday. We hope you can join us then. Thanks so much for all the comments. They've been brilliant again tonight. Thanks so much to Des Roache and to Andy Newport as well. And as I say, hope you can join us Saturday. Cheers, Keith.
Cheers, Dan.